On September 22, 2003, a mother dropped her 5-year-old daughter off at her swimming instructor's house for what was supposed to be a quick makeup lesson. Just 2 hours. That's all it was supposed to be. When she returned to pick her up, the house was empty. The instructor was gone. Her daughter had vanished. And for the next 10 years, she would search through every shadow, every lead, every dead end, until one crumpled receipt buried in an old purse changed everything. How does a child disappear from a trusted adult's home in the middle of the afternoon without anyone noticing? How does a man erase his entire existence and take a little girl with him? And how does a mother's refusal to give up finally crack open a case that everyone else had already closed? This is the story of Mandy Spencer. And this is how her mother brought her home. Portland, Oregon. September 2003. The city was in the middle of one of those rare, golden autumns where the rain held off just long enough for people to remember why they loved the Pacific Northwest. The leaves were turning, the air was crisp, and life felt manageable, predictable, safe. For 34-year-old Jennifer Spencer, life had finally started to settle into a rhythm she could handle. She was a single mother, working as a medical billing specialist at a clinic in Northeast Portland. Her daughter, Mandy Rose Spencer, had just turned 5 years old that August, bright, curious, fearless in the water. Mandy had started swimming lessons that summer at the local community pool, and she'd taken to it like she'd been born in the water. Her instructor, Frank Oliver, was a 43-year-old former competitive swimmer who ran private lessons out of his home pool in the suburbs. Parents loved him. He was patient, professional, and had a way of making even the most nervous kids feel comfortable. Jennifer had met him through a flyer at the community center. His rates were reasonable, his references were solid, and after the first lesson, Mandy came home glowing. "Mom, Frank says I'm a natural," she'd said, dripping pool water all over the kitchen floor. "He says I could be in the Olympics someday." Jennifer had smiled, wrapping her daughter in a towel. "Maybe you will be, baby. Maybe you will." Over the next 2 months, Mandy had lessons every Saturday morning. Frank's house was in a quiet neighborhood in Beaverton. About 20 minutes from their apartment, Jennifer would drop her off, run errands, and pick her up 2 hours later. It was routine. It was safe. It was normal. Until September 22nd. That Monday morning, Jennifer got a call from Frank. His voice was calm, apologetic. "Hi, Mrs. Spencer. This is Frank Oliver. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I had to cancel Mandy's lesson this past Saturday because of a family emergency. I was wondering if you'd be available to bring her by today for a makeup session. I know it's short notice, but I have the afternoon free, and I'd hate for her to fall behind." Jennifer glanced at her calendar. She had a dentist appointment at 3 p.m., but it was only noon. She could drop Mandy off, make the appointment, and pick her up by 2:30. "That should work," Jennifer said. "What time?" "How about 12:30? I'll have her back to you by 2:30, just like always." "Perfect. Thank you, Frank." 20 minutes later, Jennifer pulled up in front of Frank's house. It was a modest, single-story ranch with a fenced backyard where the pool was located. Mandy was already unbuckling her seatbelt, her swim bag in hand. "Be good," Jennifer said, kissing her forehead. "I'll be back in 2 hours." "Okay, Mommy," Mandy said, hopping out of the car. Frank was standing on the porch, waving. He was tall, lean, with graying hair and a friendly smile. Jennifer waved back, watched Mandy run up the walkway, and then drove off. She didn't know it would be the last time she'd see her daughter for 10 years. Jennifer returned at 2:35 p.m., 5 minutes late because the dentist had run over. She parked in front of Frank's house and walked up to the door, knocking twice. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. A knot formed in her stomach. She tried the doorknob. Locked. Jennifer walked around the side of the house, peering through the fence into the backyard. The pool was covered. No towels, no toys, no sign that anyone had been there. She pulled out her cell phone and dialed Frank's number. It rang, and then went to voicemail. Frank, this is Jennifer Spencer. I'm outside your house. Where are you? Where's Mandy? She hung up and called again. Same result. Panic started to creep in, cold and sharp. Jennifer ran back to the front door and pounded on it. Frank! Mandy! Open the door! A neighbor across the street opened her door. An older woman with white hair and a concerned expression. Are you okay, dear? Jennifer turned, her voice shaking. I'm looking for Frank Oliver. He lives here. Have you seen him today? The woman frowned. Frank? No, I haven't seen him in a few days, actually. His car's been gone since the weekend. Jennifer's heart dropped. Are you sure? Positive. I noticed because he usually waves when he's out front, but I haven't seen him since Friday, maybe. Jennifer's hands were trembling as she dialed 911. My daughter is missing, she said, her voice breaking. I dropped her off for a swimming lesson 2 hours ago, and now the instructor is gone. The house is empty. I can't find her. Please, you have to help me. 2 patrol cars arrived within 10 minutes. Jennifer stood on the lawn, arms wrapped around herself, trying to explain through tears. I dropped her off at 12:30. He called me this morning to schedule a makeup lesson. I've been bringing her here for months. He's her swim instructor. I trusted him. One officer knocked on the door, while another radioed for backup. A third officer began questioning Jennifer. Ma'am, what's your daughter's name? Mandy. Mandy Rose Spencer. She's 5 years old. Blonde hair, green eyes. She was wearing a purple swimsuit and a pink cover-up. And the instructor's name? Frank Oliver. He's 43. He's been teaching her since July. The officer made notes, then looked up. Do you have a photo of your daughter? Jennifer pulled out her phone with shaking hands, scrolling to a recent picture of Mandy at the park, grinning with an ice cream cone. We're going to find her, ma'am, the officer said, but his tone was careful, measured, not promising. Within 30 minutes, more units arrived. A supervisor authorized entry into the house. They broke the lock on the back door and went inside. Jennifer waited on the curb, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. When the officers emerged, their faces were grim. The house is empty, ma'am. No personal belongings. No furniture in most of the rooms. It looks like no one's been living here for at least a few days. Jennifer's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the curb, sobbing into her hands. That's impossible. He was here. He called me this morning. He was here. A detective arrived shortly after. A woman in her 40s named Detective Laura Brennan. She knelt beside Jennifer, her voice calm but firm. Mrs. Spencer, I need you to focus. Did Frank Oliver ever give you any personal information? An address other than this one? A phone number? Anything? Jennifer shook her head. Just his cell phone. And this address. That's all I had. Detective Brennan stood, speaking into her radio. Run a full background check on Frank Oliver, age 43, last known address here in Beaverton. I want everything. By 5 p.m., an Amber Alert had been issued for Mandy Rose Spencer. Her photo appeared on news broadcasts across Oregon and Washington. Blonde hair, green eyes, 5 years old. Last seen wearing a purple swimsuit. But there were no leads, no witnesses, no sign of Frank Oliver or Mandy anywhere. The first 48 hours were a blur of police interviews, search teams, and news cameras. Jennifer barely slept, barely ate. She sat in her apartment, staring at Mandy's empty bed, her stuffed animals lined up against the pillow. Detective Brennan returned on the third day with an update, and it wasn't good. "Mrs. Spencer, we've run a full background check on Frank Oliver. The name doesn't exist. No social security number, no driver's license, no records of any kind before 2002. Jennifer stared at her. "What do you mean it doesn't exist? It's a fake identity. Whoever this man is, Frank Oliver isn't his real name. The house he was renting? He paid cash, 6 months up front, using a fake ID. The phone number he gave you? It's a burner phone. It's been turned off since the day Mandy disappeared." Jennifer felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "So who is he?" "We don't know yet, but we're working on it." Over the next few weeks, investigators dug deeper. They discovered that Frank Oliver had placed ads for swimming lessons in community centers across Portland, starting in early 2002. He'd taught dozens of kids. Parents described him as professional, trustworthy, great with children, but no one really knew him. No one had been to his house except for lessons. No one had his real name. He was a ghost. And he'd taken Mandy with him. If this story is already gripping you, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to telling real stories of survival, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between parents and their children. We don't just tell these stories for views. We tell them because they matter. Because somewhere, someone is still searching. And because hope should never be silent. Subscribe, and let's keep shining a light on the cases that need it most. The months after Mandy's disappearance were the darkest of Jennifer Spencer's life. She quit her job. She couldn't focus. Couldn't sit at a desk and process insurance claims while her daughter was out there somewhere. Possibly scared, possibly hurt, possibly calling for her. She moved back in with her mother in Southeast Portland, a small house with barely enough room for 2 people, let alone 3. But her mother, Carol, didn't hesitate. She took Jennifer in, held her when she cried, and helped her keep searching when the police started to slow down. Because that's what happens in cases like this. The first few weeks are intense. Search teams, helicopters, volunteers combing through parks and forests. But when the leads dry up, when the tips stop coming in, the case gets filed away. Not closed, just quiet. By December 2003, 3 months after Mandy disappeared, the active search had ended. Detective Brennan still called Jennifer once a week with updates, but there was never anything new. "We're still looking, Mrs. Spencer. I promise you, we haven't given up." But Jennifer could hear it in her voice. The case was going cold. So Jennifer did what any mother would do. She refused to let it. She started her own investigation. She printed flyers with Mandy's face on them and posted them all over Portland. Coffee shops, grocery stores, libraries, bus stops, anywhere people might see them. She created a website, one of the first of its kind for a missing child case in Oregon. She taught herself basic HTML, uploading photos, timelines, and details about the man who'd called himself Frank Oliver. She joined online forums for families of missing children, connecting with other parents who understood the unique hell of not knowing. And she kept searching, every single day. In 2005, 2 years after Mandy disappeared, Jennifer got a call from a private investigator named Maximus Reed. He'd seen her website and wanted to help. "I've been doing this for 20 years, Maximus said, over coffee at a diner in downtown Portland. "And something about your case doesn't sit right with me. This guy didn't just take your daughter on impulse. He planned it. And people who plan that carefully usually have a history. Jennifer leaned forward. What do you mean? Maximus pulled out a folder, spreading documents across the table. I've been digging into similar cases across the Pacific Northwest. Missing children, fake identities, men who worked with kids and then vanished. There are at least 3 other cases in the past 10 years that match the pattern. Jennifer's breath caught. You think he's done this before? I think it's possible. And if he has, there might be a trail we can follow. Over the next year, Maximus worked the case pro bono, following leads that the police didn't have the resources to pursue. He discovered that a man matching Frank Oliver's description had been seen in Seattle in 2001, working as a youth soccer coach under a different name. That identity had also been fake. He found another case in Eugene, Oregon, in 1998. A man calling himself Tom Bradley had been teaching piano lessons to children. He disappeared suddenly, and a few weeks later, a 7-year-old girl went missing. She was never found. This guy is a professional, Maximus told Jennifer in 2006. He knows how to disappear. He knows how to blend in, and he's been doing it for a long time. Jennifer stared at the files spread across her kitchen table, her hands trembling. So, how do we find him? Maximus sighed. Honestly, we might not. Not unless he makes a mistake. The years crawled by. 2007, 2008, 2009. Mandy's case remained unsolved. Jennifer kept the website updated, kept posting on forums, kept hoping that someone, somewhere, had seen something. She attended vigils on the anniversary of Mandy's disappearance every year. The first few years, dozens of people showed up. By 2009, it was just Jennifer, her mother, and a handful of neighbors who still remembered. Jennifer turned 40 inches 2009. She looked older than her years, her face lined with grief, her hair streaked with gray she didn't bother to cover. She'd started working again, part-time, just enough to pay the bills. But every spare moment was spent searching. She kept Mandy's room exactly as it had been the day she disappeared. The bed was still made. The stuffed animals were still lined up. The drawings Mandy had made in kindergarten were still taped to the walls. Sometimes Jennifer would sit on the edge of the bed, holding Mandy's favorite stuffed dolphin, and whisper into the silence. Where are you, baby? Are you okay? Do you remember me? In early 2010, 7 years after Mandy disappeared, Jennifer received a strange email through her website. The subject line read, "I think I saw her." Jennifer's heart stopped. She opened the email with shaking hands. Asterisk. My name is Rachel. I live in Spokane, Washington. I was at a grocery store last week, and I saw a girl who looked exactly like the age-progressed photo on your website. She was with an older man, maybe in his 52nds. He called her Emma. I tried to get closer, but they left before I could say anything. I'm not sure if it was her, but I thought you should know. Asterisk. Jennifer immediately forwarded the email to Detective Brennan, who contacted the Spokane Police Department. They reviewed security footage from the grocery store, but the quality was too poor to make a positive identification. It was another dead end. But it was also something else. It was hope. Because if someone had seen a girl who looked like Mandy, that meant she might still be out there, still alive. Jennifer clung to that hope like a lifeline. June 2013, 10 years after Mandy disappeared. Jennifer was 44 years old. She'd been searching for her daughter for a decade. A decade of dead ends, false leads, and sleepless nights. She still updated the website, still posted flyers, still refused to give up. But she was tired, bone deep. soul-crushing tired. That summer, her mother suggested she take a break. Just for a weekend, honey. Go somewhere. Clear your head. Jennifer didn't want to. Leaving Portland felt like abandoning Mandy. But her mother insisted, and eventually, Jennifer agreed. She drove to the Oregon coast, to a small town called Cannon Beach. She rented a cheap motel room and spent the weekend walking along the shore, trying to remember what it felt like to breathe without the weight of grief pressing down on her chest. On Sunday afternoon, she stopped at a small cafe for lunch. It was quiet, just a handful of locals and a few tourists. Jennifer ordered a sandwich and sat by the window, staring out at the ocean. And then she saw her. A teenage girl, maybe 14 or 15 years old, walking down the sidewalk with an older man. She had blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, and even from a distance, something about her posture, the way she moved, felt achingly familiar. Jennifer's heart stopped. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. The girl and the man turned the corner, heading toward the parking lot. Jennifer threw money on the table and ran outside. "Excuse me," she called, her voice shaking. "Wait." The man turned. He was in his early 50s, with graying hair and a calm, measured expression. The girl stood beside him, looking confused. Jennifer stopped a few feet away, her eyes locked on the girl's face. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said, her voice trembling. You look so much like someone I used to know." The man's expression tightened slightly. "I think you have us confused with someone else." But Jennifer wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the girl. "What's your name?" Jennifer asked softly. The girl glanced at the man, then back at Jennifer. "Emma?" she said quietly. Jennifer's breath caught. Emma. The same name from the email in 2010. "How old are you, Emma?" 15. Jennifer's mind raced. Mandy would be 15 now. Exactly 15. The man stepped between them, his voice firmer now. "I'm sorry, but we really need to go. We're late for an appointment." He placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, guiding her toward a car parked nearby. A silver SUV with Washington plates. Jennifer's hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone, quickly typing the license plate number into her notes before they drove away. She stood in the parking lot, her heart pounding, her mind screaming that something was wrong. Back at the motel, Jennifer called Detective Brennan. "I think I saw her," Jennifer said, her voice urgent. "I think I saw Mandy." Detective Brennan listened as Jennifer explained everything. The girl, the man, the name, Emma, the Washington plates. "I'll run the plates," Detective Brennan said. "But Jennifer, you need to prepare yourself. It's been 10 years. The chances—" "I know," Jennifer interrupted. "But I have to check. I can't ignore this." That night, Jennifer couldn't sleep. She sat on the motel bed, staring at her phone, waiting for Detective Brennan to call back. At 2 a.m., her phone finally rang. "Jennifer." The plates came back, registered to a man named Richard Brenner. He lives in Tacoma, Washington. No criminal record. But here's the thing, I ran his background, and there's almost nothing on him before 2004. It's like he didn't exist before then. Jennifer's blood ran cold. Just like Frank Oliver. "Exactly. I've contacted the Tacoma Police Department. They're going to pay him a visit tomorrow." Jennifer hung up and stared at the ceiling, her heart pounding. After 10 years, she might finally have found her daughter. The next morning, Detective Brennan called again. "Jennifer, we have a problem. Richard Brenner's house is empty. Neighbors say they saw him and a teenage girl leave early this morning with suitcases. It looks like he ran." Jennifer's heart sank. No, no, we were so close. We've issued a bolo, be on the lookout for his vehicle. Every officer in Washington and Oregon is looking for him. We're going to find him, Jennifer. But Jennifer couldn't just sit and wait. She got in her car and started driving. She didn't know where she was going, but she couldn't stay still. She drove through small towns along the coast, scanning every parking lot, every street, every face. And then, in a tiny town called Manzanita, she saw it. The silver SUV, parked outside a small motel. Jennifer's hands were shaking as she dialed 911. "I found him," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I found the man who took my daughter. I need you to pause for just a second. If you're feeling what I'm feeling right now, that tension, that hope, that desperate need to know what happens next, leave a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Are you in the US? Canada? Somewhere across the world? I want to know, because these stories connect us. They remind us that no matter where we are, we all understand what it means to fight for the people we love. Drop your location in the comments. Let's build a community of people who refuse to look away. Within 15 minutes, 3 police cars surrounded the motel. Jennifer stayed in her car, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. Officers approached the motel room door, knocking firmly. "Richard Brenner, this is the police. Open the door." There was a long pause. Then the door opened slowly. The man Jennifer had seen in Cannon Beach stood in the doorway, his hands raised slightly. His expression was calm, almost resigned. "I know why you're here," he said quietly. Behind him, Jennifer could see the girl Emma standing in the middle of the room, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Step outside, Mr. Brenner," one of the officers said, slowly. He complied, and within seconds, he was in handcuffs. Jennifer got out of her car, her legs shaking. An officer approached her. "Mrs. Spencer, we need you to stay back for now. We're going to bring the girl out and take her to the hospital for evaluation." Jennifer nodded, tears streaming down her face. A female officer entered the motel room, speaking softly to the girl. A few minutes later, she emerged, guiding Emma gently by the arm. Jennifer's breath caught. It was her. It was Mandy. Older, taller, but unmistakably her daughter. Their eyes met across the parking lot, and for a moment, the world stopped. At the hospital, Mandy, who'd been living as Emma for 10 years, was examined by doctors. Physically, she was healthy. Emotionally, she was in shock. A social worker sat with her, explaining gently what had happened. "Emma, your real name is Mandy Rose Spencer. You were taken from your mother when you were 5 years old by a man who lied to you about who he was. Your mother has been searching for you every single day for 10 years, and she's here now. She's been waiting to see you." Mandy stared at the wall, tears streaming silently down her face. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Richard said my mother died. He said I didn't have anyone else." The social worker's voice was gentle. "He lied to you, sweetheart. Your mother is alive, and she never stopped looking for you." Mandy's hands were shaking. "Can I see her?" "Of course." Jennifer stood in the hallway, her heart in her throat. When the door opened and she saw Mandy standing there, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "Mandy," she whispered. Mandy stared at her, searching her face for something familiar. "Are you really my mom?" Jennifer nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, baby. I'm your mom, and I've been looking for you every single day since you were taken from me." Mandy took a tentative step forward, then another, and then she was standing right in front of Jennifer, looking up at her with eyes full of confusion and pain. "I don't remember you," Mandy whispered, "but I want to. I really, really want to." Jennifer reached out slowly, gently, placing her hands on Mandy's shoulders. "It's okay," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "We have time now, all the time in the world." And then Mandy collapsed into her arms, sobbing against her mother's shoulder. Jennifer held her tightly, one hand cradling the back of Mandy's head, the other wrapped around her waist, never wanting to let go again. Over the next few weeks, the full story came out. The man who'd called himself Frank Oliver and later Richard Brenner was actually named Thomas Edward Callahan. He was 53 years old, a former swim coach who'd been fired from multiple positions in the 1990s for inappropriate behavior. With students, though, nothing had ever been proven. He'd lost his own daughter in a custody battle in 1997 and had become obsessed with the idea of saving a child who reminded him of her. He'd been using fake identities for over a decade, moving from city to city, working with children, and waiting for the right opportunity. Mandy had been that opportunity. He'd planned the abduction meticulously, quit his fake job, withdrawn cash, created a new identity in Washington. And when Jennifer called him that day in September 2003, he'd seen his chance. He'd taken Mandy, told her that her mother had died in a car accident, and raised her as his own daughter under the name Emma Brenner. For 10 years, Mandy believed the lie. During the trial in late 2013, Thomas Callahan showed no remorse. "I gave her a good life," he said from the stand. "I loved her. I protected her. She was happy." Jennifer sat in the courtroom, her hands clenched into fists, her jaw tight. When it was her turn to testify, she looked directly at him. "You didn't save her," Jennifer said, her voice steady and cold. "You stole her. You stole 10 years of her life, 10 years of my life, and you will never, ever be forgiven for that." The judge sentenced Thomas Callahan to 30 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Mandy moved back in with Jennifer in Portland. The adjustment was hard. Mandy had lived an entire childhood believing a lie. She had memories of a man she'd called Dad for 10 years. She had no memories of Jennifer. But slowly, piece by piece, those memories started to come back. One night, a few months after the trial, Mandy was sitting in her old bedroom, the one Jennifer had kept exactly as it was. She picked up the stuffed dolphin on the bed, and suddenly, a memory hit her. "You gave this to me," Mandy said quietly, looking at Jennifer. "At the aquarium. I was 4. I remember." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, you wouldn't let go of it the entire way home." Mandy held the dolphin close, tears streaming down her face. "I remember you singing to me. At night, before bed." Jennifer nodded, her voice breaking. "Every night, I sang you the same song." "Sing it now," Mandy whispered. And Jennifer did. She sat beside her daughter on the bed and sang the lullaby she'd sung 1,000 times before, her voice soft and trembling. And for the first time in 10 years, Mandy felt like she was home. Before we finish this story, I need to ask you something. What do you think about cases like this? About the parents who never give up? About the children who survive and find their way back? Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts. Do you believe in miracles? Do you believe that love is stronger than evil? Because I do. And I think stories like Mandy's prove it. So leave a comment. Share your thoughts. Let's talk about hope. By 2015, Mandy had fully reintegrated into life with her mother. She was in therapy, working through the trauma of discovering that her entire childhood had been built on a lie. But she was healing. She started high school, made friends, joined the swim team not because of Frank Oliver, but because she genuinely loved the water. Jennifer went back to work full-time, finally able to breathe again after a decade of suffocating grief. They celebrated Mandy's 17th birthday together in 2015. It was small, just the two of them and Jennifer's mother. But it was perfect. As they sat around the kitchen table, Mandy looked at her mother and smiled. "Thank you," she said quietly. Jennifer frowned. "For what?" "For never giving up on me." Jennifer reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "I will never give up on you, Mandy. Not ever. No matter what." Today, Mandy is in her mid-20s. She's studying social work, hoping to help other survivors of abduction and trauma. Jennifer still runs the website she created all those years ago, but now it's a resource for other families of missing children. And every year, on September 22nd, they light a candle together. Not for the day Mandy was taken, but for the day she came home. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope is real and that love never gives up, then do 3 things for me. 1. Subscribe to this channel. We tell real stories of survival, resilience, and the unbreakable human spirit. 2. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's fighting their own battle. Someone who needs to be reminded that miracles do happen. And 3. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you think. Tell me your story. Because somewhere out there, another family is still searching, another child is still missing, and another mother is refusing to give up. Let's keep their stories alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. I'll see you in the next one.